go straight to the topic, since Margarita mentioned what we're going to talk about, and pick up where the previous speaker, the presentation, left off on the Pharos project. And I was wondering, as you are actually one of the major pillars of assistance in this effort, how will this benefit Greek society, the Greek economy, and our ecosystem here in Greece?
Okay. So first of all, thanks for the invitation. Growthfund is currently one of the partners, together with GRNet, represented by Professor Kollias, which are setting up the Greek AI factory, Pharos. Our responsibility is to look into the business aspects of how can such an endeavor benefit the society, the economy, and have a multiplicative effect. So what is very interesting, and what we're starting to see as we are setting up the business environment where Pharos will operate, so we're currently establishing a subsidiary company of Growthfund. We have started seeking the talent that will man this company, and we're also starting to receive the first interest from the market, from potential beneficiaries, from the research and academic entities on how can they use what Pharos will have to offer and how can we collaborate. And what we see in these early steps is that there is a lot of potential, especially in utilizing the infrastructure of Pharos and the talent, the experts behind Pharos, to boost how enterprises operate today. Pharos has as its target a specific sector of the economy, which is the small and medium enterprises and the startups. And of course, the public sector will also benefit from its operations. And there we see benefits in two different areas. First of all, for direct beneficiaries of Pharos, we see that the services and the intelligence produced by Pharos, building upon all these data sets that Professor Kollias mentioned, from a very privileged point of view, because Pharos will have access to health data, will have access to sustainability, climate, weather data at large scale, coming from the country's, let's say, sources, is that this will provide an opportunity for the beneficiaries of Pharos to change the way they operate, to make their decisions and embed intelligence in their operations on a daily basis. And on the other front, we see that there is this one-to-many effect that we expect, because when we talk about small or very small enterprises, micro-enterprises in Greece, and how can they benefit from AI in general and Pharos services in particular, we see that we can develop solutions which will have a one-to-many applicability. So, for example, one big sector of our sustainability pillar is agriculture, and how can you help this sector of our economy to make more intelligent decisions in day-to-day operations, also to protect from risks and massive climate destructive events and so on. So in Pharos, we believe that we can work with different sectors of the economy to develop models trained on this vast, big public data that will then be ready to be used by multiple very small enterprises, which do not have, each one of them by themselves, the capacity, the knowledge, and even the capital to build such solutions themselves. So from the business point of view, we see a lot of potential, and we're very eager to start working on that.
I was wondering, you mentioned there is interest from the private sector. Local, domestic, or are we hearing from maybe the area, if not Europe or the world?
Pharos is very well connected, of course, within the country, but also in the regional level.
Okay.
So we have the so-called antenna partners. And also because Pharos and the Greek AI factory is a part of 13 European AI factories which are, let's say, expected to collaborate, we believe, and we already see some signs, that there will be both regional and European level interest and collaborations.
Good. Mr. Kassimiotis, let me ask, are we in a new ecosystem of redefining, in a way, economies of scale? We had the traditional system where, producing goods and services, then digital age came along, and now with very low, if any, marginal cost, now we're entering the AI scale. The models, once trained, they will decide, they will do things that I don't know if we will be able to control them. Are we entering this world? I think we are, but you are the expert, so you will give us, I guess, a more in-depth analysis of this.
Okay, I will take the opportunity to answer in a more abstract level in order to avoid a long-time debate, because you can read, let's say, the question in different angles. But before this, please allow me to mention from the beginning that today I'm not representing only my company, the company that builds Daedalus here, but also SEPE, the Greek Federation of ICT companies. So I will try, let's say, to give a universal view on my placements to the discussion. So I believe that the question gives me a good opportunity to, let's say, compare the previous revolutions or the previous, let's say, steps in our, let's say, in the humanities evolution. We had the Industrial Revolution, where, let's say, scale was, let's say, on producing more effectively products. Then we had recently the digital era, where, let's say, the scale moved to how effectively you produce services. And now we start realizing the new AI era, where, let's say, the scale, the economy of scale moves towards, let's say, cognitive, close to creativity. So we have different kind of values that if brought in scale, they can change completely the production and consuming model of a country or of a continent or of the world. So I believe that it's early yet, to my view, to say that we have reached the point that AI has transformed the economy to a new kind of capitalism. So just to link with the title of this panel. But however, I cannot reject that this may happen soon. For the moment, I see that AI is a huge accelerator, and in industries and in verticals that already have acquired the outcome of the AI tools, we see that we have the shaping of new competitions. So I believe that we are in a turning point. It happened that during the last 2-3 years, because of the advances of the technology in terms of infrastructure, because AI is a very, let's say, resources-hungry game and a very expensive game to a big extent, we saw that we had an exponential acceleration and growth of AI tools. It's amazing, and I think that never happened again in the past, that when, for example, ChatGPT was introduced only in the first few weeks, they had, I don't remember how many millions of users and consumers. However, the big question now is how all these capabilities that technology provides can turn into a kind of value at the enterprise level. So who is the consumer? And how, for example, companies in Greece, for example, just to make it more specific, can leverage AI tools in order to become more competitive, not only at domestic level, because I don't believe that we should shrink the game only to the strict borders of our country, but how competitive they can become in a larger scale. And I think that this will be the big debate and the big bet.
Is there only a positive reading of AI, making everything more competitive, more users, more data? Is only the positive reading of it? Or should we read also a negative?
The smarter you become, the lower the cost, the better and higher the margin you can, let's say, get out of the use of this kind of tools. So the answer is absolutely yes.
Mr. Anagnostopoulos, what is the argument in favor, but also against, EU national infrastructure, as opposed to hyperscaler infrastructure by startups and SMEs that want to invest and use AI?
Thank you for the question and the invitation. And I'm going to replay a bit on the themes introduced by the other panelists as well. I think from the perspective of industry, and I'm here representing QuantumBlack, which is the AI arm of McKinsey globally. So we've seen this journey of digital transformation followed by AI transformation in boardrooms all around the world. There's been a surprising development, to be honest. I think we didn't quite expect 3 or 4 years ago for the first success story of AI to be a consumer launch, to the point that was raised earlier. We could have been in a different world today. It could have been a case of AI models being built behind closed doors without access to the broad consumer public and priced at inordinate amounts that are only available to large enterprises. This is not the world we're in. Instead, the big hyperscalers and the big AI developers in particular decided to take a consumer-based first approach, which has led to some, if I may say, unexpected developments in the commercial model. The price has gone down because they need to satisfy billions of users per day. At the same time, a lot of the infrastructural scale-ups that we see them invest in are there to support what we call inference time computation, so responding to consumer calls. Even a simple thank you to ChatGPT costs quite a lot of money and electricity, right? And not necessarily training. So there's an argument to be made that is it really, right now, a national infrastructure or an EU infrastructure for AI? Is that what SMEs need to use AI more, or even large enterprises? From the perspective of cost, I would say that in most cases that's not the blocker, with the important exception of micro companies that are very important for Greece in particular. So there I'm very excited about the potential of democratizing access to that lower tier of industry in terms of their ability to invest in capital-intensive work like AI use. So that to me is a shining exception and one that we should definitely follow. But other than cost, are there other reasons why a national infrastructure might be the right answer? I think the answer to that is yes. And it goes into two main directions. First, what we refer to as alignment of AI, and it was discussed extensively also in the previous panel. Building AI systems that are by design compliant with not necessarily hard regulations. There is a debate around how much we should regulate, but certainly values and principles that underlie the European mission, the European, let's say, project. That is actually, just from the pragmatic perspective of a company needing to use AI services, it's a relief to be able to use a system that's already pre-aligned, it's compliant by design, right? These are extremely high costs for small companies to pay. One of the biggest bottlenecks in AI adoption right now is not actually the technical implementation or the solution design, but the compliance overhead. So in that sense, I'm not advocating here for less regulation. That's a big debate that we shouldn't discuss here. But given that there is regulation in place in the EU, having a national infrastructure is definitely beneficial. The last quick point I would make is something also raised by the other panelists, that solution design for SMEs in particular is also a huge added value. It's not straightforward to use a product that is, to my earlier point, currently primarily targeted at a consumer base. It's optimized to give the perfect response for the average consumer. To take that and use it in an enterprise or solve a business problem with that, that requires a lot of expertise, which is still not available at the breadth and magnitude required. So having pre-baked, configured solutions, 80% there for different use cases in key industries like agriculture, health, and so on, that would be the biggest enabler that I can see in the short term in favor of using national infrastructure.
Sevasti, can I ask for your take on the risks and challenges for an economy like the one we are creating.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think...
Let me say that I think I'm speaking on behalf of many simple, average people who see more challenges and risks than, the positive side.
Okay, so I think we would have to dedicate an entire panel discussion on that. But if I could say very briefly, I mean, the risks are both in terms of how do we use the data and how do we fine-tune existing models or develop new models in a way that, produce only benefits and do not produce biases or distort information are currently being discussed globally at different levels, technical, ethical, governmental, and so on. I think I will go back to the context of Pharos and build upon my previous panelist's comments. So what we're seeing first as a need is to help the companies navigate in this new regulatory and risk environment. So from that point of view, we think that it will be very beneficial if we control the way data is being used. For that purpose,
we being who?
Within Pharos. Okay, so, and of course, any other endeavor that, is of the same nature, trying to deliver any type of AI services to the public and the companies. So the idea is to use some, let's say, technical structures, such as sandboxes, in which you do have control of the data. You do have control of how models are being trained, but you control also that sensitive data is not exposed, that models are not getting out of hand in terms of how they are refined. And also, there is another aspect of these sandboxes that we also aspire to put in place in the environment of Pharos that has to do with regulatory compliance. So, both in terms of the technology itself, but also how do we adhere to the regulatory environment and how risky it is for a company to adopt an AI technology and then being exposed to risks that have to do with non-compliance, with, let's say, leaking of data, with misuse of AI models. We have the aspiration to put in place within Pharos mechanisms and tools and environments where we can help mitigating these risks.
Mr. Kassimiotis, since we're talking about Greece, but we're also part of the European Union, we're also part of the world, and there is a competition, AI competition these days between, let's say, as major forces, the US, Europe, China, India coming up. Where is Europe in this context? And also, maybe more importantly for us, where is Greece within this, maybe its own sub-context?
Okay.
Of course, Daedalus and Pharos are part of our contribution, but it's up to you. You have the floor, sir.
Better late than never. So I would say, just to start with, I believe that till recently the AI race was a race between mainly two players. Before Europe starts, let's say, regulating things as a consumer first, but now realizing that the adoption of AI and the big ambition to become an AI continent is, let's say, a survival, let's say, issue. So I believe that the world is distributed between two main powers for the moment. US, I believe, is the leader in this game, followed by China with different and with a different, let's say, model in building AI systems, till recently using also AI technology, talking about, let's say, the chip level, but now realizing they have to produce their own technology. So the world currently is dominating by these two edges, US on one side, China on the other side, and Europe not as a manufacturer of AI infrastructure, but mainly as a consumer, entering the game of building, let's say, models or building AI tools, starting from the regulation point of view, because everything in Europe is good if it is regulated. If not regulated, we don't trust. So here, there is a big debate, innovation first or regulation first.
And we have President Trump attacking the European Union on this front on many issues, not only AI. Do we need less regulation?
You mean if we have less regulation coming from
the European Union, from Brussels, on AI development?
I believe that without, let's say, abandoning the ethical standpoint of view of how Europe reads things, I believe that they will relax a little bit all these strict regulations, because this does not work. Because the other edges work on a totally different mentality, speed, and when you over-regulate things, apparently the innovation gets, let's say, at a lower level and a lower efficiency. I believe that Europe has taken the big decision, first of all, so they have dedicated all those funds required in order, let's say, to focus on where Europe can be strong. And Europe cannot be strong only in regulating things. They can be strong in developing smart use of AI. We see that all this initiative about the European AI factories aims, let's say, to set Europe a pioneering power at a world level. I believe now that in this Europe trying to take a seat in this global game and become the one that will have the superpower in hands and not just, let's say, consuming the superpower is given. I believe that Greece, in this new reality, is a contributor to this European effort. But first of all, it should be a European effort. It cannot be successful in Greece if it cannot be part of a European effort. As Greeks, we like, let's say, to think ourselves as the smartest in the world, like all other nations around, but we know that without being part of, let's say, such a European ecosystem, all this effort that is a historical effort for the country will vanish into thin air. So I believe it is critical that Greece became one of the 7 first AI factories in Europe, this ambitious program. And it is good that we have the national infrastructure being built in Lavrion, the Pharos project coming, because Pharos should have, let's say, a big target to commercialize all this effort and not just, let's say, stay at the research level. At this point, I believe that it would be good to mention that if we manage, let's say, to take all the advantage of AI, we will see the country's GDP, let's say, increasing dramatically. There was a research 2 years ago conducted by Deloitte for SEPE, and in this research there were some interesting findings. So it was calculated that by 2030, the GDP of the country could cumulatively increase by 5.5%, and other conditions even close to 10%. This is between 10 to 20 billion that will flow into, let's say, the country's GDP as additional income. The big problem, however, is if we have the conditions...
There's always a problem in most things. So.
Yes, because in order to do all this, you have, let's say, to be supported by the human capital. Because human, at the end of the day, should be not the, let's say, the regulator, but the consumer. And we should put all this stuff at work. And the big question is, do we have the human capital to do so? For the moment, also according to the same survey, it seems that we have a gap of 83,000, let's say, scientists in the data science, in the AI scientists. So it's a difficult game that should be balanced at some point, and this should be taken into the policy-making level.
Will some of the ones that have left come back, and if they do, will they make a difference? Actually, you're an honorary associate professor at Imperial, so I think you understand what I'm talking about. I
did come back, yeah.
Yeah, to close the gap as much as we can. Would so many Greeks who are abroad coming back help in that? Would they come back?
I think that's a big topic, and it's not just an AI topic. The brain gain is a structural question that multiple governments and the private sector have tried to fix. And I think we do see a small reversal in the trend, right? Like we do see people coming back. It is a question, though, of the fundamentals of the market. I think certainly AI factories will themselves create some momentum that creates enthusiasm and a sense that the topic is now properly being addressed. But in the end, the AI market is driven by adoption of AI, by SMEs, by larger enterprises, by industrial companies, and we don't have large enterprises in Greece. We don't have many large factories that are going to be redesigned using AI. So I think these structural things are still in place, right? Now, a different approach, and it was mentioned by previous panelists, is to be more extrovert. I think we have a great opportunity in Europe to realize the vision of kind of, selling services, advanced services in particular, to each other, because we do have similar data environments. We have national health systems. For example, healthcare is one of the priority systems. That's not the case in other countries. So building services on top of national health data, that's something that you can then generalize to different countries. You have satellite data is another example, right? Like where any service that you provide to a Greek private or public sector stakeholder, you could provide also to Italy or Spain or even beyond. So I think there are opportunities to be entrepreneurially extrovert, and this, to me, would be the biggest driver of brain gain, having that ability to live in Greece but serve a global market. And I know that that's also a priority of Pharos, so I think this is helpful.
We know the scaling laws continue to apply on AI development. The larger the data center and the compute, the smarter the machine. But if we look at the actual impact numbers, do scaling numbers add up? Do they?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think we've heard a lot about AI factories, gigafactories. We talk about billions of GPUs and millions of GPUs. And this conversation is driven by the fact that there is a thing called scaling laws that the AI community has been advocating, that basically you just need to throw more compute and more data at the problem. This wasn't the idea 10 years ago. We didn't think that AI would develop by just throwing compute at it. But the current AI paradigm, based on transformers and neural networks, does seem to be data and compute intensive. There is no perfect consensus in the technical community as to whether scaling laws will continue. In the previous panel, we heard about small models gaining ground. What is for sure true is that data is an enabler. So in that sense, the data lab part of the AI Factors Initiative is very important. But if we take a different perspective, like what we're observing is that scaling, compute, and data allow for better performance in benchmarking and better behavior of the systems in consumer use cases. But do we see greater adoption in enterprises? So our global survey has shown that compared to 2024, 55% of large enterprises were quoting that they were using AI in at least one business function. This number is now up to 78, which is good. But if you look at how many companies are using AI in more than 5 business functions, just trying to see the spread of adoption, that's only 16% still. And it's still true to say that 1 in 10 AI pilots only goes to production. So we see use, we see experimentation. Do we see impact growing as exponentially as compute? We don't at the moment. Instead, the bottlenecks there are validation, trust, which is the key topic underlying regulation. I think regulation is almost a little bit of a red herring. Trust is really what this is about. Trust to use the technology safely, because a CEO of a responsible company is not going to use AI if it's not safe, regardless of whether it's regulated or not. And solution design and process redesign. So there's a lot to do in order to translate those scaling laws to actual economic impact. So a lot of work ahead.
We're out of time. I want to thank you. And also just note that I hope the effort will not be only on how we create and we move ahead with technology, but how we control it, who controls it, and how, because I think all of us here agree that all these data should not end up in the wrong hands and the wrong minds. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.